So if you're a transit system, what do you do when you're almost done bringing your service levels back to 2019 levels when suddenly you run out of storage? This is one of the most basic principles when operating a transit system, a simple application of supply and demand at that. If you're going to operate a bus system when it's at its busiest, you're gonna need a place to park them when they're not in use. Now yes, there's this whole argument of getting better night bus service to keep buses out of the yard, but that's marginal compared to when the system needs its buses the most. Weekdays from 6 AM to 9 AM and 3 PM to 6 PM. Like, you can't just drive up operator hours and rack up maintenance just to keep buses out of the yard at night. Case in point, the system is in fact dealing with a lack of bus storage, especially during the overnight hours. And the proof is in the patterns of service changes in the last few years. Outside from the expansion of articulated buses, Route 23, the start of the R6 Rapid Bus, and the expansion of weekend service and span of service to select routes to start earlier and end later, most other bus routes went through a reallocation of service known as a short turn. Basically what you do is you remove a number of full-length trips to double service halfway along the routes where and when the demand is greatest. So for example, the morning and afternoon rush. Now surely there has to be another way to increase service for when the system is at its busiest. Reallocating service in this way has its drawbacks, and case in point, there has to be a way to increase service without having any sort of compromise to existing service. In this video, I want to focus more on the technical side of TransLink's next major bus yard, Marpole Transit Center. The reason I'm making this video is because I don't think there's enough realization to the amount of service increases across the region this will unlock. Simply put, I don't think there's enough hype going into this project. So sit back, relax, and let's jump right in as we discover why Marpole is probably the biggest transit bus expansion in Metro Vancouver right now. First off, let's spend a couple minutes taking a look at TransLink's newest yard. Plans for a new bus yard in Vancouver can be traced all the way back to 2017, just 1 year after Hamilton opened for operations. And during this time it had a different name, Silvertree. Construction eventually began in 2024 after geological and environmental impact studies were completed. When it opens for service, it will be the first multi-level bus yard in the city, which is honestly an achievement built out of a shortage of industrial land in Metro Vancouver. The facility will be able to house 300 battery electric buses, though I think this is more likely to be made up of diesel and hybrid units of 40 and 60 footers to begin with. Storage of buses will take place on the first level, with charging taking place on the second level. Lastly, the top level will be reserved for employee and visitor parking. Unlike Hamilton Transit Center in 2016, Marpole will not be replacing any of the existing yards. This will be the first such case since 2000 when Richmond opened for service. Now in terms of service levels across the region, the effects in Vancouver will be felt immediately. The current plan is to have the existing Vancouver yard to be dedicated to trolley buses, while Marpole is set to operate the diesel, hybrid, and eventually battery electric fleet. VTC is expecting the first wave of replacement trolley buses in the next year or two. As for Marpole Transit Center, the scheduled opening is in 2028, which is 1 year after the Broadway subway is opened and the R2 Rapid Bus is extended from Phipps Exchange to Metrotown Station. So why are they building this bus yard in the first place? Now to answer that, let's take a quick look at some of the changes they have done in the past few years. Now there were some pretty notable expansions like the 23 finally being upgraded to standard buses, the start of the R6 Rapid Bus down Scott Road, and the introduction of articulated service on the 2, 25, and 84 Express. But for the rest of the bus routes outside Vancouver, service increases as of late have come with that compromise that I talked about in the beginning. So for example, the 123 has trips from Newest Station to 6th Avenue, the 49 has trips from Metrotown to Langara, and the 335 has trips that go from SkyTrain just to Guildford to increase service on 108 Avenue. In some ways, this is unsustainable because of the obvious bottleneck of people wanting to continue further, albeit on a slightly lower frequency. The opening of this bus yard will eventually allow for some long-needed frequency upgrades across the TransLink bus network. And let's look beyond having the latest fleet technology a little bit. As I said in a previous video, the non-electric 40-foot bus is the most expendable resource in the system. Like, go ahead and order battery electric 40-foot buses. You can always shuffle around routes and older buses to the different yards as necessary, so that's pretty much a non-issue when it comes to total service levels across the region. But just for the sake of having a starting ground, I expect all the UBC diesel routes and all of Vancouver Transit Centre's diesel routes to be relocated to Marpole on opening day. Doing some quick math, I arrived at 96 40-foot hybrid buses and 140 articulated hybrid buses. Now think about what you could do with 300 more 40-foot buses on the system, since that's what the end goal is. Let's rapid fire some examples. The 19 Kingsway can finally achieve 6 to 8 trips an hour all day. Would it be wise to run the 33 at every 10 to 12 minutes? Or just run the 25 at 10 trips an hour during rush hour? In Burnaby, let's bring the 106 and 119 to every 6 to 8 minutes. In North Van, maybe the 240 can finally get back to 8 trips an hour peak. Let's go to Surrey, and I'm sure they can find ways to bring the 335 to 8 trips an hour after 3 p.m. They'll get the 321 to 9 trips an hour, and get around to bringing maybe the 364 to 5 to 6 trips an hour peak. And perhaps all of the Richmond buses can get 1 or 2 more trips an hour peak, and that's including the 406 and 430. And shifting to Langley, they could probably fortify Fraser Highway service until the Expo line is completed. Now these are just some of the possibilities and badly needed frequency increases, especially in that south of Fraser area, which has consistently registered record-breaking ridership growth in the past few years. The need to increase frequency during peak hours is reaching a breaking point. So if I'm being realistic, all signs at least now are pointing to the Broadway subway timetable revision as being perhaps the most important reallocation of resources until the new yard opens. And the reason I'm saying that is that right now it is theoretically possible to just reassign the extra buses on the 99 to operate on the R2 extension. That is, without removing Arctics from the 323 or taking some from the 2, 25, 84 or what have you. And let's be real here, I have very little reason to believe that they will end up applying the rapid bus livery to the fleet of standard Arctics. I feel like the rapid bus livery has pretty much grown on transit riders to the point where it doesn't matter if a rapid bus unit is operating on the 257 and vice versa. And I'm looking at Seattle because they actually went ahead and replaced the livery on some of their standard Arctic buses to match the rapid ride fleet. In short, it's likely they can reallocate those extra 99 B-line buses to run the R2 extension, and then go from there using those 40-foot buses on other 40-foot bus routes across the region. The impact of this timetable revision will be felt immediately across the board, specifically for the routes that receive the extra buses. Sudden increases like these are said to have a positive effect on ridership, as generally these improvements are more noticeable compared to incremental increases. So to conclude, right now the opening of the Broadway subway is the biggest opportunity for badly needed frequency increases across the region. Especially in Surrey and to an extent Hamilton, the yards are more versatile than ever when shuffling around routes and 40-foot buses. If Hamilton needs to take over the 312 or 364 for service increases, then so be it. But on a grand note, in the long run, you cannot have a widespread increase of bus service across the region without this yard. If you're in a position to operate the extra service during rush hour when demand is at its highest, you need to be able to park and maintain those buses during the off-peak. We have already established that the yard will solidify the current agenda of having cleaner battery electric bus technology and the latest LEED certifications for building operations. But if you're in the loop, also think about the social impact of having a new bus yard. Think about the amount of mechanics, drivers, and admins that will be needed once the new yard opens. And with that in mind, that's all I have for now. Thank you for watching. Please like and consider subscribing. Stay in school because we'll need a ton of mechanics and technicians in the next decade, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.